doesn't matter which pro mix tutorial or interview you watch, the one thing that comes up in each of them as the holy grail for creating amazing mixes is always saturation. Pros sprinkle a little saturation on everything, and in this video, not only am I going to show you some genius saturation tricks that I've stolen from pros over the years, but you're also going to get one saturation trick that can make one of the most difficult instruments get heard in a mix. This first one from mixing engineer Eric Valentine changed so much of how I approach not just saturation, but getting other instruments to fit in a mix overall. You see, Eric Valentine comes from the tape recording days of audio recording and has an affinity for saturation. One of Papa Valentine's favorite ways to utilize saturation is by using it as a way to EQ an instrument or mix. Using a plugin like Saturn, you can split the bands to focus on different areas of the instrument, and instead of reaching for that EQ to boost, use a flattering saturation flavor and start pushing the saturation to get some nice harmonics. This will increase the perceived loudness and volume thanks to the harmonics introduced to the signal. And of course, using a multi-band saturation plugin with the mix knob will let you fine-tune it even more or automate the mix within the track so you can get the warmest and fattest sound possible. It's like using a magic wand to cast a Lingardian Leviosa spell that lifts an instrument in the mix. I hope I pronounced that right.
It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
Now this next saturation move is standard for the mixer behind bands like Red Hot Chili Peppers and Green Day, to name a few. Andrew Scheps has been using this saturation trick to fan up his mixes with saturation for nearly 2 decades. By moving the threshold of a Fairchild compressor all the way to the left, Andrew is able to avoid the compression circuit and just take advantage of the thick tube saturation that the Fairchilds offer. Andrew swears that this adds something that no other saturation emulation can get quite right, and believe it is in part because of the military spec component doubling inside of the Fairchild units. The next trick I stumbled across is from Grammy-nominated mixer Luca Pretellosi. The next trick I stumbled across is from Grammy-nominated mixer Luca Pretellosi, who has worked with artists like Drake, David Guetta, and countless others. I was watching a tutorial where Luca was demonstrating how he uses saturation on his drum bus to bring things to life, and not in a traditional way of just throwing tape emulation like so many other mixing engineers do. Luca's approach was fresh as he utilized his experience from mastering work to wield the powerful technique of mid-side processing. Luca's trick is simple. Use a saturation plugin to saturate the mids so the fullness of the drums get more energy and forwardness to the balance of the drum set. And this helps him to not over EQ instruments like the kick and the snare. And by using a plugin that allows for mid-side saturation, he can treat the sides separately to get different levels of excitement on the sides of the drum kit. Next time you're mixing, before throwing on any processing on the drums, throw some mid-side saturation on your drum bus and use it to sculpt the sound of your drums before adding additional processing. I promise you'll feel less irritated by your drum mixes like you just had a Snickers bar. Now this next one I uncovered when I was reviewing a session that my mentor Beau Burchell had just finished mixing. Now I had been with Beau for a while at this point and I had seen a lot of his tricks repeated, but every once in a while a new trick would pop up and they were always so simple yet so freaking brilliant. And this particular trick caught me by surprise. It was an ingenious way to mimic the behavior that a guitar boost pedal introduces to a guitar signal before it hits an amp, but offering more flexibility than when you use a boost pedal. It allowed him to alter the EQ curvature of a guitar DI without having to touch an EQ. And this allowed Beau to just get more subtle harmonic richness in any frequency range he desired before the amplifier section. And by using a plugin like Saturn II, Beau was able to split the frequencies of the DI signal to add subtle harmonic richness to whatever range he wanted, and utilizing the mix knob to get different amounts of saturation in each of those ranges, and using it to automate throughout the mix. I like to think of this as having a variety of hot sauces that you can pour on your guitar tone burrito. And that, my friends, is the spice of audio engineering. But we gotta add spice to a frequency range that gets lost easily within a mix. And it's a shame because everyone loves a nice fat low end.
Yeah, boy.
But sometimes it can get a little too cranked and muddy up the rest of the mix. And I used to use and abuse plugins like Max Bass and R-Bass, but the low end would just get bigger, but the note would sometimes get lost still. Now remember at the beginning of the video when I said this? But you're also gonna get one saturation trick that has helped with one of the most difficult instruments to get heard in a mix. Well, luckily for me, and now you'll get to try this next trick out that has completely changed how I work with low end in every mix. During the mix session, I saw Beau use a plugin that has popped up a few times in this video already. Beau was using it to enhance the note definition of the lows of an instrument. This was a way for him to avoid the sludgy low end that can sometimes be introduced by using low-end enhancing synthesis plugins. By using something like Saturn II to focus on the low and sub-lows of the bass, using the saturation and mix blend control really helped him define the note's clarity. This allowed Bo to get a fatter sounding bass low end that translated in a cleaner way. It's like taking the bass and giving it a spa day. Now it sounds like a lean, mean bass machine. And what makes saturation so powerful is when you use it in combination with other mixing techniques that will allow you to take your mixing game to the next level, like your character in your favorite RPG. Which is why you'll want to watch this video right here for some more tricks that you should steal that you'll want to start using in your mixes today.